Ladies and gentlemen, could we have order? Hello? Thank you. I will call the workshop session to order tonight. Before we get too far into it, I would like to thank all of you for coming. Appreciate it. We don't ordinarily see this many people for our council meetings, and it's a pleasure for us to see you here. This is not a new subject. It's been ongoing for the city for quite some time now. We actually signed a resolution in 2019 as did the county, to approve a study. And that's all that's happened at this point, is that a resolution has been signed to approve the study for feasibility to find a route around Lampasas if necessary. At this point, we do have some TxDOT people in the audience. We're hoping that we can answer some of your questions. I'm going to turn it over to Finley so he can introduce them.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item has been placed on the workshop agenda at the request of the Mayor to discuss and receive comment on the relief route feasibility study. I would call your attention to a couple of inclusions in the packet. One is the letter the city received on October 10th, 2019 by the then district engineer Elias Ramelli, who requested a resolution of support for the study to manage future traffic demands along US 183, 190, 281 corridors in Lampasas. The letter further explained the proposed study would include investigating the need for a relief route around Lampasas and the conversion of US 190 from Lampasas to Copperas Cove into a freeway facility, and that's certainly a reference to I-14. I will point out one paragraph within Mr. Ramelli's letter at the time, which was, this type of study does not mean that there's going to be a relief route or a freeway expansion project. A study of this kind is completed to determine the viability of alternative routes to alleviate congestion and improve mobility and safety of the traveling public. The study itself will take approximately 2 years and be comprised of various public involvements to inform and include the public in TxDOT's decision-making process. The other item that I would point out to council, and this was even a precursor to the letter from TxDOT in 2019, but in the process of developing the city's comprehensive plan, which also included a good deal of public engagement, the result were several citations in that plan. In Objective 5.2, that's Chapter 5, to reduce conflicts between highway and local traffic, and then the complementary action steps 5.2.1, to coordinate with TxDOT to explore options for bypass that removes truck traffic from local streets where possible, and 5.2.2, work with TxDOT to identify potential routes for the planned I-14 Forts to Ports Highway corridor. I believe we're fortunate to have the new Brownwood District Engineer with us this evening, and with that I'll yield to the Council and the Mayor.
We will have TxDOT speak if they're still agreeable. I will say that we're anxious to hear your public comments. With a crowd this size, we're going to limit the amount of time you have. I've been told that you only have 3 speakers. If someone else does speak up, we will have to keep everything short. We're hoping that you only bring out the one point that you have and that we don't have the same point repeated over. And I have asked TxDOT if they're available afterwards to meet downstairs if you have individual questions that you might want to have answered. There's a meeting room downstairs just before you come up. And they said they did have a few moments to stay for that. Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to let TxDOT come up here and give some information about where we're at on the feasibility study. And as Mr. Finley has pointed out, it is just that. It is a study. Some of the comments we've received is that the route is already predetermined, and that is not the case. This is still a feasibility study in its infancy stages. If the city and the local elected officials support the study to take it further, to see what kind of impact it would have on the community, we are capable of doing that and providing that information. But like I said, it is very early on in the feasibility stages, and so we don't have that information for you today. But we can, if we want to, spend the tax dollars to see what that impact would be. That's kind of why we're here too, is to try to take questions, try to see if there's areas of misconception that we might be able to further describe, because we have gone through 2 iterations of public comment on this feasibility study, with also an option for the public to draw what those different routes would look like for a relief route on 281. That current information is on our website as well. Some folks have visited the website. I do heavily encourage that if you do visit the website to view the videos that is recorded for that information, because one without the other it's not thorough, good information. So you really got to take a look at both. So we are here today. We would love to answer questions, and you must be proud to see as much folks interested in transportation in their city. It's since I am the new district engineer, I can't really say that maybe that's my welcoming committee, but we are here to answer those questions, and it will be available. So I've got Jason Scantling. He's our Transportation Public Director. So he's been involved with the process from the get-go, so he's really keeps me in line about what's happened to date. We have Lisa Timpton, who is our Public Information Officer, and we have Jody Kelly, who was one of our planning folks in the district as well. So we're available, and if I will pause and keep it there. And
Okay. Warren, did you want to start us off? We're going to ask that you sign your name and put a phone number by the sign-in sheet, and we ask that you speak into the microphone, identify yourself, and then speak so that everyone can hear.
So Barbara's going to introduce our committee.
Okay.
Mayor and City Council and other city officials, we thank you for the opportunity to come before you today. We are here tonight as a very concerned group of citizens who have been brought together in opposition to the proposed TxDOT Lampasas bypass. Although each of us may have a personal story about why we oppose the bypass, we are united in the belief, in the very strong belief, that the bypass would negatively change our town forever. Our numbers have grown exponentially, and we now have over 1,200 signatures on petitions. I was just handed 5 more pages from the Trading Post downtown, and this online petition keeps going up minute by minute, so you can see the support. As you listen to our presentation, please consider joining us by adopting the resolution to oppose the bypass, and we are now going to present our key points. Wes?
Thank you. My name is Warren Blunser, and I've been in the county for 45 years and have been employed by the state, 25 of that. So I've watched our growth and our businesses and our community expand over the years, and I think we all knew it was coming. I'm very conscious of your time, and Mayor and City Council, I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Number one, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the vitality of our community here and share a quick story with you. Some 35 years ago, I had a world-renowned photographer with me that did a news article called Opening Weekend, and it had to do with deer season and the economy of our town. And I remember turning around at the top of 183 with that photographer. It was about 7:30 at night, and the first word out of his mouth was, "I cannot believe how the economy flows through this community." He said, "This is overwhelming to me to see the sights of these lights and these businesses that function here." So obviously my concern could be selfishly because I own a piece of property that could be affected by this bypass, but I'm more concerned about the vitality of our community. My wife and I give many, many hours of volunteerism and I care deeply about this community and have made it our home. The other thing I'd like to speak a little bit on to you, and I won't get too deep in the bushes, but the loss of habitat. I think our Texas Agricultural Commissioner made the statement week before last that we were losing one farm a week in Texas. And I believe what he meant was one farm a day. So Texas leads the nation right now in one of the top leading counties in the state for land fragmentation. And I would ask that you consider that as you move through your considerations of what we're asking of each and every one of you. And we know that you're in a position that people look up to and support. And I would ask you to understand what actually eminent domain really means. A lot of people don't know me and what I do, but I work in many eminent domain cases throughout the country, both in Texas and other states. And I can tell you the shock and awe of eminent domain to have your land taken for any purposes never is recoverable inside your heart and your body. We've put our time not only in our commitment to our community, but our properties. And my next door neighbor, to share this with you, it's not a good story, but you need to know about it. He put his house on the market today, and he just bought this house, and it's on 183. And he is in one of the proposed routes, and he told me today he has put his property up for sale. And part of that decision was because of the imminent looming of this bypass. So a couple of things that I would tell you about. I work for a very large land trust in Texas. And my job is to do a lot of appraisals in Texas and do analysis on land. And today, if I wanted to sell our property that we've just invested large sums of money in, I would have to disclose what's looming over our property at this time, whether it occurs or it doesn't occur. So I would ask you to consider what many landowners would be going through and are going through today. And remember, some of these landowners are people that have many, many years of ownership of this property, and they're doing land divisions and airship planning right now, and all of this affects this. Every bit of it does. We, the community, and we, this group that we're speaking for, we're in touch with TxDOT. We wanted to be upfront and transparent with them. They encouraged us to get the feel of our constituents in our community, and that's why we're here tonight right now. And I know you know that we're deeply involved in this and we're concerned about this. So I would ask you tonight to consider that you vote no with us and consider a resolution to support our standing. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Wes Chansey. A lot of y'all may know of my little store that I have here in town. I've been a resident of the county for some time. I'm a business owner here in town. And all my life I've been in business. I've run large companies, I've run small companies. And so I've been asked to talk a little bit about the possible financial impact that we could have on our city. You know, if you go back many years ago, Lampasas was a boom town with the mineral baths and that type of stuff. When that fell out of favor, our town didn't have a lot of sources of outside revenue coming into our town anymore. We didn't have oil money. We didn't have any big manufacturing here. We didn't have big agriculture. We certainly weren't a tourist destination anymore. So the town kind of fell on hard times for a while, and it took us many decades to kind of rebuild. And Lampasas is rebuilt around the fact that it's a travel hub. And we have a lot of people come through this town, and they're a source of a lot of outside revenue that comes into our town. Now, you know, you may wonder, well, why do we need all this outside revenue? Well, every community's just got a limited amount of cash floating around at any one time. And a lot of that money gets spent outside of the community. You know, it gets spent mortgage payments, loan payments, insurance premiums. People buy big ticket stuff out of town, boats, RVs. They buy stuff online. So a lot of money floats out of Lampasas. So if we don't have that money coming back in from some other source, Lampasas just gets smaller. The cash in this town gets smaller. And then the next year, much of that money goes away, it gets a little smaller again, and a little smaller again. And one day, the town just dwindles down, and this is how towns die. This is how you've seen a lot of ghost towns or dead towns around the state if you travel as much as I do. This is how towns die. They don't have any outside revenue coming in to keep the vitality of the economy in there. So we've had a number of businesses that we've talked to that are really concerned about this. A lot of them have said they're going to be, you know, either severely hurt or destroyed if the traffic that represents their customers float, it goes in a different route, goes around town. Talk to Alfredo's, Coming Home, Country Kitchen, Giovanni's, Storms, the major car dealerships, Rustler's Junction. As you know, my business brings a lot of outside revenue into this town because about 80–90% of our business is from people outside the county. So, you know, what would Key Avenue look like if a lot of those businesses were devastated? It would be pretty tough to have a main avenue through town with a bunch of weeds growing and boarded up windows and stuff like that. You know, when you stop and think about it, businesses, they create commerce, and that's the engine that drives the economy in every community. And without those businesses driving that, you have a lot of bad things happen. You have loss of jobs, you have loss of sales tax and property tax revenue that's going to be hard to replace. How would the city make up, for instance, the tax revenues that we lost? I think we have a pretty significant amount of income from tax revenues every year, probably in the millions of dollars. If we lose a big chunk of that, how do we make that up? Will we have to raise taxes on the residents? Will we have to reduce services? And there's also the further expense that's involved in this potential bypass, because the city and the county could be on the hook for 10% of the land acquisition costs. That could be millions of dollars right there, millions of dollars. So in summary, and I don't want to take up any more of your time, you know, we talked about the impact on wildlife, landowners. We talked about the loss of tax revenue for the city. We've talked about the loss of jobs and the crippling impact it would have on the local businesses and the commerce in this town. And that's why we're asking you respectfully to issue a resolution opposing this bypass, and let's save Lampasas. Okay, any questions?
One last closing remark I'd have before we sit down for you. I've testified many times on the state and national level to issues. I know they're difficult, and I know what you face, and I know your responsibility, but I would like to ask you to do one thing tonight. If you look across this room right now, the people in this room come from every walk of life in this community. There are homeowners, there are business owners, there are people that live in town that wouldn't be affected unless they perceived it to be affected. But this is a different situation than I've ever been affected with because of all the walks of life of people that are in this room tonight, and this is only a portion of them. Thank you for your time and your consideration to listen to us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
May I say one more thing? Sure. We have packets for the council on all of the research that we have done, and we've worked hard. We really have. We've done our homework, and we've canvassed the city and gotten opinions from a lot of people. And so all of that is compiled for you, and we will give that to you later.
Sure. Thank you so much. Did we have time for a few questions, or you want to send everybody downstairs? Are there others who would like to speak? We do ask that if you're going to, you present different views and not just repeat the same thing. Please identify yourself and sign the piece of paper. And speak into the microphone, please.
Thank you, Council, for listening to us and giving us an opportunity to give our side of our feelings on this bypass. I'm Claudia Wallace with the Lampasas County Historical Commission. We don't have any economic interest in this, not a business owner, but we do represent the history of Lampasas. According to the Texas Historical Commission, there are over 160 historical sites in the county. They're not all marked with a historical marker, but they are recorded and they're on the website. And when I did express, let me say, when this first came up to TxDOT, that we were concerned with any kind of a bypass or new path, that historical sites, whether they were marked or not, would be disrupted. And we just want to make sure that is made known, that you may not see a place until you get very close to it, but there are many places in Lampasas, and you know that there are 254 counties in Lampasas, and we're the third oldest continuous used courthouse in Texas. So we have a lot of history behind us, and we want to preserve it. Restoration and preservation is our goal. And thank you for letting us talk to you about it and express our concerns over these sites. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Wallace.
Anyone else? Julie?
Well, thank you, Mayor and City Council. Warren, Barb, and Wes, you did an excellent job. I want to read from the TxDOT website, their number one reason for this relief study. The purpose of the relief route is to help reduce congestion. I'd like to debunk that. There's a lot of traffic on Key Avenue. I'm not denying that. I've timed myself repeatedly from the very south end of Lampasas, the very first traffic light at 281, 183, and 190, all the way to my turnoff to head to Lomita. You know how long it's taken me? 3 minutes. So if the traffic increases, doubles, it's going to take me 6 minutes. So I'd just like to debunk the idea of congestion, and I've timed it numerous different days and different times of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Darrell Hurst. I do not live in the city limits, so therefore I probably don't have a foot to stand on, but I live in the county. And one of the plans, proposed plans, is to come through my land and my neighbors, so therefore the door has been opened so I can say something. I've been in Lampasas County 9 years, and before that I was in the military, Marine Corps, for 21 years serving our country. When we're taught in the Marine Corps, one thing is to always identify the problem or identify the requirement. So I ask, not just you, but I also ask TxDOT, where is the requirement? The requirement has not been identified. As it was just said a few minutes ago by Julie Williams, there isn't traffic. I also did the same thing about measuring. I was on 580 East, and I drove from 580 East from the city limit sign all the way down Key Avenue, 183 South to the city limits. It's actually 4 miles long. I was stopped by 3 lights. It took me a whole 6 minutes and 24 seconds to travel 4 miles. Once again, well, this was on a Monday, and it's at 11 o'clock. Once again, where is the requirement? In addition, you look at other towns, look at Brownwood. Brownwood has several highways going through it. It's 2.5 times the size of Lampasas. It doesn't have a bypass. Fredericksburg has 11,000 population. It has several highways going through it. It doesn't have a bypass. So if they don't have a bypass, why do we need a bypass? Before you say yes or no, I still ask you, and I ask TxDOT, where is the requirement? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Yeah, my name is Len Grasso. I'm a citizen of Lampasas. lived here for about 25 years. I retired from the military. Before we go into something like this, I just want to make sure that we've kind of examined all the options that we have for decreasing so-called congestion along Key Ave. I mean, we got a lot of lights down there, okay? We got a place up here at 183, 190, 281. It's got a stop sign. It probably could easily be taken care of by an overpass to get rid of that stop sign and let the traffic flow. You know, the congestion is apparently is in Key Ave. Well, it's the main street, guys. There's supposed to be congestion in the main street, okay? I don't understand what the problem is, okay? I mean, to me, it's not a safety issue, but it's a little town. We've got 70, according to the last census, about 7,400 people in this town. They want to spend $250 million on this bypass, okay? If you believe what you read in your website. Well, that's a lot of money, guys. You know, that's $250 million, okay? You know, Fredericksburg, like I said, doesn't have a bypass. Well, maybe you ought to ask Fredericksburg if you'd like a bypass and see what their answer is. Or maybe even better, since this is an issue that affects the entire town, why don't we vote on it, okay? Why don't we make a vote on it and not let an agency of the state government make the decision for us? This is our life, this is our town, okay? It's a place that we live in, a place that people have put a lot of work and a lot of effort into building their home for their families. Let the people decide, okay? Vote on it. I mean, this is a democracy. Vote on it.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
What you're getting here.
Thank you,
is
sir.
people that are able to come here.
Thank you. We
Okay.
appreciate you speaking.
I'm
Thank you
just
so
saying.
much. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Judith Ann McGee. I live in Lampasas, landowner, homeowner, and I just have a question. We've all heard about I-14 and how I-14 is going to basically connect Midland to Belton, and I-14 is proposed to come right through Lampasas County. It seems like we are jumping the gun on this bypass possibly when the federal government is making decisions about making 190 an interstate. So I wonder if this may be tabled until those decisions are made so that we're not paying for something twice, you know, building a bypass and then fixing it and then making it bigger and turning it into an interstate. That's just my question, and I don't know if they can answer that, but I think that's something that should be asked.
I think TxDOT could talk to you about that. Yes.
That'd be great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Are you guys prepared to stay downstairs and answer a few questions? Thank you. We appreciate it. We value all your opinions. We're so glad you came. We don't ordinarily see this many people on our council meetings, and next time we have a meeting, feel free to come on back out. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Would it be possible for him to address the I-14 question before we go downstairs?
Sure.
Thank you.
Greg?
So you're right, that is another study, another corridor study that's taking place right now. And so it is a very good question. So if the relief route for 281 was to move forward, we would have to coordinate those efforts with that. If this does not move forward, then there's no sense in doing that. And so it's kind of like, just like you said, the cart before the horse. So we kind of need some of that feedback. That's what we're looking for. And so that's why we're here. This is the very preliminary stages of that. And that's the reason why they're not moving together right now.
And this is just a study, right?
This
We're
is
not
just a
talking about
study.
moving forward right now. And the congestion that folks are talking about at the moment, that's also for the future, isn't it?
That's correct. And it's not just, it's just not Lampasas County either. It's, this is a relief route that has been identified for US 281 in lieu of Interstate 35. So this is the reason for the study.
And this study was
It
started.
is just a
back in-
study.
I'm sorry?
This study was started back in 2019, or the beginning. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that's been 4 years ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And, yes, sir?
The study just started in June of 2022.
Oh.
Our TxDOT study.
The talking was before that, Herb. It's
Okay.
been talked about.
I was just looking October the 10th, 2019, the city received correspondence. So
Yes.
that's when we.
Study only started, and there have been 2 public meetings. I don't know if any of you were fortunate enough to be able to attend those meetings, but a lot of questions were answered there. If you still have questions, I'm sure TxDOT can answer them. Yes, sir, Greg? Or Jason?
Yeah, so from 2019, the study was delayed and impacted by COVID. So it didn't start as soon as the resolution that we originally anticipated. So after, meetings were able to start in person again, we started up that feasibility study. So that wasn't until June of 22. So there was a big delay from the resolution to the beginning of the study.
And it's y'all's understanding that there's neither been support or opposition from the city, just a request to see the impact.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And if there's not local support, the feasibility study gets wrapped up with an executive summary. You provided a copy of it, we put it on the shelf, and we wait until we're ready for it.
Right.
That's basically what that boils down to. If we're never ready for it, we're never ready for it. Only thing we want to point out and keep in mind is, even if there was support today and it was fully funded, it would take 8 to 10 years to deliver such a project. So if you're feeling congestion today, just keep that in mind, because it does take a long time to deliver these type of corridor routes. And this is what this feasibility study is. It's a planning tool. That's what it is.
Do you happen to know on the I-14 one, do you happen to know where that is in our area, feasibility-wise, study-wise, funding-wise?
I'm not familiar with that one, but Jason, do you know much about it?
Yeah, so with,
If I need to introduce myself again, I'm Jason Scantling. I'm the Director of Transportation Planning and Development. Work for Greg. And so, yeah, the I-14 feasibility study is just barely getting underway. Our TxDOT Corridor Planning Division in Austin has selected CDM Smith to do that study. And so we've been in negotiations of that contract for the last couple of months. So we're waiting to hear when those first meetings for that study are going to kick off and when they're going to be to the Lampasas area. So that is coming in the near future, but we're not sure on what the dates are yet. So that's still being negotiated.
Thank y'all.
Anything else? Finley, you want to wrap up a few comments?
Just to dovetail what you said, Mayor, I believe TxDOT staff is willing and available to answer any questions one-on-one, and I believe they even have some exhibits that they might be able to roll out and show folks as well.
If there are no other questions, we'd encourage you to stop downstairs at the meeting room and talk to TxDOT. Get it straight from their mouth rather than your neighbor. We do feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there that people are uncertain about, and things are going around. We've already seen that there's a dollar amount attached to the study, and I don't know how that could be, but just keep an open mind, express your views. We're all anxious to hear what you have to say, and we appreciate you coming. Thank you. Right now? Go ahead. I will get a move.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the workshop session.
Second. Workshop is now adjourned. Do we need a break? As soon as we can, we'll start the other meeting.
You want me to bang on the table for you?
What? We are adjourned. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We're taking a 5-minute break. Good afternoon. I will go ahead and call the regular session to order, and if we could have Chief Cummins give us a prayer, please.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this great group of people here tonight and the opportunity to take care of your good business, which is a good business of all of your people. We're appreciative of everybody's passions on both sides of the table of all issues that we'll discuss tonight. We ask that you watch over us in information freely received, and we ask for the best decisions to be made for the best of everybody. We ask that you watch over us in safety till we can meet again, forgive us in sins, and as always, in Jesus' name, amen.
Please join me in the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. We do have some presentations and proclamations. We're going to start with service anniversaries. I will just name them off. If they're here, we'll go down and give them their certificate. John Wilkes, 5 years. Emily Stone, 10 years. And Van Berry, 35 years.
Hey, Van, can I do a 3 and a 5 behind you?
Next item is a community champion has been nominated, and I would ask that Dennis and Beth James come up so that they can listen as I read why they were nominated. If you would, turn around and face the audience. They've been nominated for running the St. Mary's Church Food Pantry. They put in countless hours organizing the pantry, coordinating volunteers, ensuring there's always enough food, applying for grants, ordering and picking up food from the food bank in Austin, and so forth. They completely changed the way the food pantry worked during the COVID pandemic to be a drive-through contactless system, never missing a month where people could come and get food. They deliver food to people who can't come to the food pantry, and they always have special emergency food bags packed in the event someone needs it. They serve tirelessly with smiles and love. Let's give them a big hand. We do appreciate your service. Next item. Citizen comments. Any citizen who desires to address the city council on an item that is not on the agenda may do so at this time. The city council may not deliberate on items presented under this agenda item. Sorry. Oh, goodness.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sherry Boltinghouse, and I am here on behalf of the two organizations I totally support, and that's the museum, Lampasas County Museum, and the Lampasas County Historical Association. And Lampasas, as you heard some of these people talk about, but the route is the historic, so many historic things in this county. And one of those is the Hostess House. And I know there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of need to improve, in some ways, the Hostess House. I'm curious, how many of you have ever had an event or been to the Hostess House for an occasion? I mean, one of my daughters was married there. It was prom site. It was so many different things. And today I was at the museum going through some old pictures that Cray Harlan Gray gave me, and I was going through those and found Hostess House pictures of the old rafters and the old cypress floor on the second floor, and the amazing memories that we have. This is from the 70s, and of course it goes way back before that. I just want you to understand the history of the facility as it is, the way it's built. To go in there and redo the historical architecture, other than the foundational things, I can see some needs for that, the elevator issues and such as that. But it's a small meeting venue, and I would encourage you to go over there and have a meeting there sometime and experience what it's like, and get the feel of it. I know it brings back lots of memories for all of us who have had any ties to it. Just take into consideration how much money it's spent, what they're saying. And I know that there is possibility of an interest in someone going back into business there to help support the cause. In just a conversational setting, some really interesting things could happen with that building to bring more use of it. Right now, it's sitting empty. There's no revenue coming in on it at all. So I would just encourage you to find some way to proceed with it and keep the integrity of the architecture and the history intact as you do.
Thank you, Mrs. Boltinghouse. Next item is citizen comments. Any citizen who desires to address the city council on a matter that is included on the agenda may do so at this time. Is there anyone? No? Going forward. Discussion and possible action concerning the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held on January 9th, 2023.
I didn't see any corrections. Recommend approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have 3 items on the consent agenda. Item number 1, discussion and possible action regarding the second reading of an ordinance to modify Appendix A, fee schedule, Public Works, electric security light installation fee. Item 2, discussion and possible action regarding the second reading of an ordinance to modify the City of Lampasas personnel policy, employee responsibilities, uniform allowances, meal allowances, standby duty hourly pay, and public service hours. Item 3, discussion and possible action regarding the second reading of an ordinance to consider approval, denial, or approval with modifications to the proposed amendments to the Lampasas zoning ordinance, Chapter 3, zoning districts, height and area regulations specific to non-single-family residential districts, such as multifamily 2 apartments, office, retail, light, and heavy industrial. Does anyone wish to remove any item from the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item would be a department report. We're going to delay that till the February 27th meeting. Next item is city manager's operational report.
Just a couple of brief comments, Mayor and City Council. This is included in your packet for reference. An update on the skate park. The SPA Spa Skate Park crew arrived January 18th, about 6 of them. They are in the process now of shaving final elevations and setting forms. And if you're a nerd about concrete work and that sort of detail work, go over and take a look. It is really fascinating how they're forming that up and setting those curves. We are keeping an eye on it from the park department as well as building official, and also using a third-party concrete testing firm. Should be done in about 5 weeks. LEDC met on January 18th for a regular meeting. They spent a fair amount of their time just talking about the relief route. Jason and Greg and Jody and their team were in attendance, so I think we had a good conversation at the LEDC board meeting regarding the relief route feasibility study. Much of the remaining agenda was spent on the discussion of property covenants, exterior finishes, and also finances. Hostess House, coincidentally, the pre-bid meeting was held on January 17th. We had about 26 folks in attendance that represented general contractors as well as subs. That plan set has been propagated to 58 additional plan rooms. The current plan holders include 15 general contractors, 11 subcontractors. I feel optimistic, but remember, just because you have a bunch of people that looking at your plans doesn't mean they're going to bid on it. But there seems to be a pretty reasonable interest. Those bids will be due back on February 14th, and they'll be packaged up for council consideration on February 27th. LCRA, just to let you know, LCRA will be doing right-of-way work in and around Lampasas in the next month or so. The areas that will be primarily impacted are going to be the west side of Lampasas. Everybody probably knows the transmission lines that go through probably the 11 or 1200 block of West Lampasas through there, and then they'll be cutting over from west to east to the 281 site and the Lampasas sub. There is a draft letter in your packet for your reference. Park Board met on January 20th and generally just reviewed and received updates on a number of different projects, including the skate park. Also, some projects currently going on, or at least in consideration, planning stages or conceptual stages at the 580 Sports Park, including multi-use trails, disc golf, and exercise equipment installation. They also did receive a report on the recent transportation alternatives preliminary application that has been submitted to TxDOT from the Assistant City Manager. Airport, we have received the scope of work for the airport layout update and narrative report. That scope will be used to finalize a contract between the selected consultant, Park Hill, and TxDOT, who is the administrator of the project. We did have a lot of input to this in terms of the selection of the consultant, as well as really a pretty strong emphasis from the city and the city's stakeholders that they wanted to make sure that there was a good amount of stakeholder involvement in that process. Pleased to recognize the following employees who began their City of Lampasas careers in January. Emily Stone, 10 years. Ryan Ward, 1 year. John Wilkes, 5 years. John Reza, 1 year. Jameson Bernardo, 1 year. Ricky Haney, 7 years. Van Berry, 35 years. Frank Ellett, 4 years. And Chad Curtis, 1 year. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like to say it's been a very nice meeting to see all these concerned citizens show up. We generally don't have that many around, and so it was kind of interesting. And hope that TxDOT is resolving some of their questions downstairs. Next item is unfinished business. We have none. New business, 7.1. Discussion and possible action concerning approval of the contract for election services between Lampasas County, Texas, and the City of Lampasas, Texas for the May 6th, 2023 general election.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You may recall at the last meeting, we did the joint agreement with the school district. This is the next step we do with the actual county. It's the same agreement that we've done for the several years. Only thing difference is gonna be the actual cost. We're estimated to be about $5,800, and I have budgeted $10,000 in that line item, so we are covered for this expense. It varies a little bit year from year, but other than that, it's the same type of contract we've done in the past.
I'd look for a motion.
I move to approve the contract for election services between Lampasas County, Texas, and the City of Lampasas, Texas for the May 6, 2023 general election, and authorize the city manager to execute the related document.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions of Becky for this? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Next item is discussion and possible action regarding the City of Lampasas Library long-range goals. Hi.
Hi, long time no see.
Yeah.
Yes, our long-range plan is good for 5 years, and it expired at the end of 2022, and so staff and I worked together, and then we presented it to the library board, which they approved, and that is attached for you. So this will be good for 2023 through 2027, and basically it covers items such as staff development, continuing education, collection development, partnerships, and things like that. So this is kind of the direction we've been wanting to go. We really kind of went through this with a fine-tooth comb and updated it to where we want to go, so.
I'd move to approve the library's updated long-range plan from 2023 to 2027.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Does anyone have any questions of Shanda?
How's it going with the Dolly Parton stuff?
Sorry?
How's it going with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library?
Pretty good, pretty good. We're getting a lot, actually, that are trying to sign up that live in Cove. And
Because it's an amazing program.
yes, it is. And we have to list the 76522 as one of our zip codes because of Taylor Creek. But we cannot possibly fund all of Coppers Cove. So I've been denying a lot of Coppers Cove people. And if they call and ask, you know, why, I explain and tell them to go talk to the Cove Library and see if they can get somebody to be their 501c3 partner. But it's going pretty good. We have about 500 every month.
That's exciting.
So we have new ones coming in, and then some, the 5-year-olds, you know, they graduate. So, yeah, it's going
It's a
really
great
well.
program.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks.
Thank you.
7.3, discussion and possible action regarding a proposed 35-mile-per-hour speed zone for Lampasas High School on Highway 281 from mile point 28.649 to mile point 29.938, totaling 0.289 miles.
Mayor, council, this was actually a request for the Lampasas ISD to look at speed zones, and when they're talking about mile points, TxDOT uses a control section number, which is a highway segment, then they use mile points, and that's how they track everything. And so this is, the summary basically covers that and what they had requested, which is a little over a quarter of a mile or 1,500, a little over 1,500 feet. Will be a 35 mile per hour speed limit zones. They will set flashing beacons, so that you see those flashing beacons around school. It'll have the posted speed limit on it for those school times. They'll be programmed and they'll be flashing and active only when school's in session. Typically, when you look at the transportation code, it calls out school zones are appropriate adjacent to school property, and so this is one of those instances. It does make sense. It's basically where the signal's at right now as you come out of Lampasas High School. It will split that difference between where that signal is coming in and also going out, so that section kind of centers up on where that is. Currently, that specific area is 55 miles per hour. You know, as you're coming in, it drops down right there, and then it progresses to 45 miles an hour So this speed zone kind of sits in that area. This typically goes back, if it's approved by council, will go back as a consent item on the transportation committee's list or agenda for next time. So I'll stand for any questions.
Move to approve the proposed 35-mile-an-hour school zone wind flashing for Lampasas High School on Highway US 281 from mile point 28.649 to mile point 29.938, totaling .289 miles.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Ward?
I'm gonna get some tickets
Idea.
around there.
Yeah, I believe so. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? At this point, we're going to discuss possible action regarding the first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 54, Parks and Recreation, City of Lampasas Code of Ordinance, adding skate park rules and creating appropriate signage for safety and well-being of the community.
Mayor and Council, this item was discussed at the last meeting with ideas and proposals that we had received from other entities and from spa skate parks. This is the first reading of the ordinance with an idea of what we would like to propose as signage. So, of course, the park hours, use at your own risk, recommended safety gear, respectful and courteous, alcohol and tobacco products being prohibited, no gum, food, or drinks on the skate park surface, no graffiti or defacing the property, and then all other City of Lampasas Park rules apply, as well as we're gonna put the blurb on there for Chapter 75, the Civil Practice and Remedies Code. However, I would like to have latitude, because as we go through the process and going through the Parks and Recreations Code of Ordinances, I wanna make sure that everything matches each other as we implement these park rules for the skate park. I wanna make sure those same rules apply to Campbell Park, to 580, to other various entities. So I might have it revised a little bit when we come back for the second reading, but I just am asking for latitude this evening. And I have that in my motion statement.
Move to approve the first reading of the ordinance amending Chapter 54, Parks and Recreation, City of Lampasas Code of Ordinances, adding skate park rules and creating appropriate signage for safety and well-being of the community, with providing staff latitude to make final changes to signage and present final upon adoption of the ordinance based on regulations in our other parks.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Becky?
I do have a question, because on here, the all other Lampasas City Park rules apply. Is that what's gonna cover where we won't allow skating and all that stuff on like the pavilion or sculpture?
Well, all of their park rules apply is what's based on our code of ordinances, and that's what I wanted to verify what's in there already, because that's the standard language that's on most signs when you see them. So I want to make sure what that refers to. But as far as the specifics for Campbell Park, that'll be handled separately for the art in the park than it will for the skate park. So eventually, we'll have proper signage for all of our entities that makes sense for each of those specific areas. But right now, we want to focus on the skate park to protect us at this point for liability, and for making sure that they know what they can and cannot do. But I want to make sure before I put that language in there that I know what our code of ordinances is and make sure it all mirrors together.
Okay,
So yes, it will be covered for Campbell Park, but not this time.
gotcha. Thank you.
Do you think before we put those signs up and the skate park opens up, that we might be able to get signs saying, no skating on the trails over there on the sidewalks and the pavilion, like Kathy was saying, like before it's open, so it's already there and we set that precedent?
The no park, well, we will be able to designate areas where they should not be skateboarding, just like we do downtown.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yes.
So, but we can get them up before the skate park's done, right?
I can't guarantee that, because we're looking at about 4 to 5 week window, but yes, we will work very diligently on making sure it is done.
Okay,
And
thanks.
and what's the level of enforcement if somebody doesn't follow the rules?
Law enforcement will take care of that for us.
Did you hear that, Jody?
Jody back there.
Oh, chief. Okay.
Actually, Jody's been very helpful with the park down there. I can always,
We'll even go back and consider cameras like we talked about before. So, I mean, there's lots of enforcement's gonna be in place, but at this time, we're just trying to get the signage done and taken care of first, our first step.
Any other comments? I do have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? At this point, I would ask for someone to adjourn us into executive session, and then I will read why we're going into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are going into executive session for item number 1, Section 551.074, Personnel Matters, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties of the city secretary, and other personnel matters as allowed by the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Item number 2, Section 551.087, Economic Development, to receive and evaluate financial information received from a business prospect, to discuss same and/or to deliberate regarding commercial or financial information that the city has received from a business prospect, that the city seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the city, with which the city is conducting economic development negotiations, and/or to deliberate the offer of any financial or other incentives to any other business prospect described above. Item 3, Section 551.086, relating to the authority of public power utility governing bodies to deliberate regarding competitive matters on utilities. And with that, we will go into an executive session. Okay, we will come back into regular session. We have no action coming out of executive. At this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.